Everybody, it's Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit, and this is like one of the DungeonSwag Boarmen or Swinemen or whatever, and I wanted to paint him up. So I base coated him with black spray from a rattle can, and then I just half-ass dry brushed him white. So I want to paint him up, and I haven't really decided exactly what look I'm going for, but I think I'm going to start with something like, I think I'm going to use barbarian flesh and make them kind of flesh toned and then work out from there. So let's make sure that my paint is mixed properly. Here it is. I'm going to get a little bit of drop on there. There we go. Nice. So I want this to be kind of wet and translucent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a little bit of water out from the sponge under here. And then I'm going to start hitting his flesh lightly with this. Okay. And if you have it thin enough like I do, you're getting some of that natural shading that existed with that undercoat already. I'm just taking my time. So once you get all the flesh hit, and make sure you get it all hit or you will regret that later on. Forgot his little head, his little face. I don't care if I get it on his horns, because I'm going to come back and paint those again anyways. And I'm not going to panic about getting it on any of the fur, because I'm going to come back and hit that too. So this thinned out barbarian flesh is the color I used. You can use any color you want that's fleshy peach or whatever you got, you know. I'm going to come back, clean my brush out, and I'm going to get a color that I want to use for his fur. And so for his fur, I'm going to use this oak brown. I'm going to get my brush kind of damp. I'm going to thin that out a little bit more. And I'm going to try to hit all his fur areas with that. So I'm going to do his legs. The thinned out brown. And I assume this is a clothing piece and not part of his fur. So I'm going to come back up here on the front. I'm going to grab his like goatee area with it. And I'm making it a little bit lighter than I ultimately want it to be, because I'm going to use a wash, and that's going to darken him up some. Just taking my time. Now for his clothing, I want to be a little interesting, but not overly so. So I'm going to start with this lava orange. I'm going to get a tiny bit of it, just a dot here. I'm using miniature paints, not craft paints today. I'm going to get this leather brown with that lava orange. I'm going to get my brush and mix those together. I want more of that orange. I'm going to get the right color. I used a lot of paint there for this. I didn't need this much. Okay, I'm going to get my brush cleaned out, get my point back, or at least some of my point back. I'm going to grab that wettish, reddish brown, and I'm going to start hitting up his clothes with it. It's a little too wet, but it'll be all right. Now I just realized that's chain, so I'm going to ignore that and come back to that later. This is some kind of leather here. I'm going to hit this. I'm going to hit this. Whatever this thing like is, butt flap, rear loincloth piece. This little piece of leather over here on the side. Okay. Then I'm going to get that same color. It's a little bit less wet, and I'm going to hit the armor pieces on his shoulder here with it. I'm going to hit that whole piece, even though I'm going to come back and do a little bit of work there later. Okay. And you want to drag it along that dark bottom part there, even though that's not the focus. Okay, something like that. Then we're going to lighten that color up with a little bit of that flesh that we had left over. Get a little bit of water there. Okay. I'm going to darken it up with that brown. Already messing up. Okay. Then, with that, I'm going to hit all my little spikes. They're going to be metallic, but they're going to be like a gross metallic, so I'm trying something. Starting to come together. He's gonna look all right. Now for that fur on his shoulders, I want something like kind of a gray. So let me look and see what I got here. I got Necromancer's Cloak. Get a little bit of water. It's not mixed well. There we go. And I'm not going to thin this out much. My brush is damp. And I have this little bit of water here. I'm just going to grab that. I'm going to carefully do my outline around where it touches flesh and clothing. And then pull it into the middle, just like that. And I'm just being real careful. Just like that. Once we have that covered, you can still see, if you keep it thin like I did, not too thin, you can see some of the shading that came from that undercoat still in effect, and that's an enormous benefit to us here. So we want to do a metallic on some of this stuff. So let me get some of this paint put away. I lost the color that goes there. I don't know where I put it. Oh, that's going to drive me apeshit nuts. I hate when things aren't in the right spot. All right. So I'm going to get a dark gray, a dark metallic, I should say, gunmetal. And I'm going to make it a little bit darker with a dab of black. Oh, this is like stuck shut. Hold on. Okay. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is, my brush is damp. I'm going to wipe a lot of that out. I'm going to grab a tiny bit of that black and set it here. Then I grab a lot of that silver, that gunmetal. I'm going to drag that around. I'm going to wipe a lot of that off. And I'm going to carefully touch my metallic parts with that. I'm just being real careful. And then this pan here, this tray or disc in the middle, I'm going to do that in metallic. Here we go. Just like that. Real careful. Then all this metallic work down here. That real dull, dark metallic that we made. Okay. And then we have these shoulder garments up here. Okay, we want to get that. We're going to do this sword blade with it. And we'll do that little hand guard too. Be real careful not to get it on that flesh though, because coming back on a metallic is tough. Now, I need a little bit of water. Let's get let's do that pommel too. It's a little darker because I didn't have much silver there, but that's okay. Okay. All right, let's get light brown or beige. This is skeleton bone. Let's do his tusks with that. Just get them real light. Make them not beige is the goal there. Okay. Then we're going to use that same color on his armbands or his bracers. And then on this belt. Just a little spot on that bracer there, that's okay. Okay. I'm going to get the gray that we used earlier. A little bit of water, a little bit of that gray. And then on like the furry part of the bracer, I'm going to drag that around on that and darken that up. Okay, pretty good. Now what I want to do is inside right here, there's these two little spots where I have to get tan, and it's real tiny, and I'm just going to go in there and just drag that in on the belt lightly and leave it go. It's not going to be perfect, that's okay. Now let's get an off-white. This is called Mummy Robes. My brush is just damp from my mouth, and I wiped a lot of that, like I sucked all the moisture from the water out of it. And I'm just going to lighten up those tusks a tiny bit, and then catch those little lower teeth that I didn't paint before with it, just drag it on them. Okay, and then on my wrist guards here, I'm just going to grab that and just lighten them up a little bit so they don't look identical to the belt. All right, let's clean that brush out and get a tiny little brush and do that trim around his clothing. I'm getting a fractional brush for that. And for that trim, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to get a dab of this pure red. Oh, let me poke a hole in it first. Oh, that's a lot. That was wasteful. I should have got a wire and pushed it down there. So I'm going to get that pure red and some of this remaining brown over here. I'm going to get my brush damp, grab that. I'm just going to slowly follow that trim. With this desaturated brownish red. More water, more red and brown. Do that trim outline. Oh, I missed a little bit right there. That will be noticeable. And then on that back part there, get that red, and I'm going to use just the red for this. I'm going to water it down so it drags real smooth and nice. I'm just going to take my time, slowly work it around that trim. Just like that. Now I want those spikes to be a different metallic. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to get a tiny bit of this weapon bronze here. And I'm going to get some of that leather brown. Okay, and I'm going to wipe that off. And remember, we used that brown mixed with something earlier to touch these spikes. And we're not really painting them, we're just kind of hitting around them and hitting the edges. Giving them a bit of a brushed metallic look. Then we're going to take that same metallic and we're going to wipe a little bit off our brush, and we're going to brush it along some of the detail on that weapon. Try to avoid the blade and the handguard. Okay, I'm going to get that bronze. I'm going to do this little ring on his sword with it. And then I'm going to do the centerpiece of this medallion crotch piece here. And I'm not going to do it exactly perfect. I'm going to leave the edges a little trashed. And we got two little pieces up here that could use it. Just one there, one there. We're going to do his ground. I'm going to get a bigger brush for that. I'm just going to switch to craft paint to do the base. So I have a damp size 3 brush, and I'm just going to carefully use burnt umber There's one more detail I want to do. I want to, on his shoulder guard things, on his shoulder pads here, his pauldrons, there's a little bit of work there. What I want to do is I want to get this bronze, this weapon bronze, and I want to kind of drag that trim a little bit with it. And this will be less noticeable and obnoxious once we do the wash. So I'm just taking my time, just touching it, I'm not painting it. There's very little paint on my brush. Hit it again real quick just to make sure I got all the spots I want to be noticeable. Okay. Last but not least, I want to shine his blade before I wash him, but I might do it after I wash him, actually. All right, so to wash him, we're going to first have to dry him. Yes, that's right. We're going to dry him, then we're going to wash him. We should be... For this wash, I'm going to use what's called soft tone. And I'm going to mix something called speed paint medium in with it. So it's not quite as prevalent. Then I'm going to get a piece of wayward toothpick from my desk here. Stir that up. Just like that. Then I'm going to get a chunky brush. I'm going to slowly coat him with this speed paint, or this wash. Hit his weapon. You don't want to revisit the same areas multiple times though, okay? Because you're going to reactivate. This paint's not cured, you know, it hasn't been sitting overnight or for hours even, so it's still pretty fresh. So what we're doing is just trying to make sure we don't hit too many of the same spots again and reactivate paint. Once you're sure you got a good coat on him and he's all covered up, that's going to add an enormous amount of detail. I'm just going to get a piece of fabric and dab around some of the higher areas where I want less wash. I'm going to dab his weapon a little bit, get his hands, make sure that they're not looking too deep. Some of that metallic stuff, maybe just dab it a little bit. Okay. And then anywhere where it's pulled up too heavily, I'm just going to dab. Because I don't want it to be too deep in some spots to look funky. Okay. Really makes a difference, doesn't it? That little bit of wash adds a lot of detail. Let's get that brush, that other brush. I'm just going to grab into some of these cracks where there's just so much wash it's overwhelming. Just grab a little bit of that out and wipe it on my cardboard. Just get in some of those spots where the wash really pulled up beyond what's good. And I'll just wipe that right off. See that? Right there, there's too much. We'll just grab that, and we're just gonna make sure we're real light. We're just grabbing the wash and not touching the paint job. See, we're just pulling that wash away. That's all I'm doing. Okay. Now we're gonna air dry him a little bit. I'm going to get my size 1 brush. I'm going to come back and I'm going to get that off-white mummy rose I used. Just a tad. Let me get a little bit out of my brush. I'm going to touch his tusks a little bit more to make those pop. And I'm thinking I want to hit that belt, but I'm deciding against it now as I look at it. I'm just going to hit his little armbands a little bit. Just lighten those up. Maybe a little bit across the back of his fur there. To add a naturally kind of badass highlight. And I'm going to get that khaki, put that on that brush, wipe most of that off, and then I'm just going to kind of do a little bit across the top of his mane lightly. create a little bit of a breakup line there. Now I'm going to get a toothpick and some clear glue and put some flock on its base. Oh my gosh, can you believe it? Oh my, there's a prophylactic on there. Can you believe it? Oh, I wanted to do the blade of his weapon too, pushing us to almost 40 minutes. What a crisis. So I want to get some grass on here. I don't want a whole lot. Just a tiny bit on the front, and maybe a little smidge in the back here in the corner. And let's get a silver. For the silver, I'm using this plate mail metal. It's a very bright silver. I'm just going to get a tiny dot of that. Just like that, and then I'm going to get that same silver I decided. I'm wipe a lot of that off my brush. I'm going to re-dab those chains up a little bit, just in some spots. Just like that. And there is my DungeonSwag Swine Lord or Pigman or whatever he is. Once he dries, I'll clear coat him, get rid of any of the shiny from the wash and stuff that's left. There's one more thing I want to do. I want to get a little bit of this. Is this in here still? Is it dry? Is there any of this barbarian flesh left in here to steal? There's a little bit in there. Let's get, it's very watered down at this point. That's okay. Get a little bit of that barbarian's flesh, and I just want to hit his knuckles. And on the center of the muscles on his stomach. There we go, he's done. He'll dry, and he will do what we need him to do. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon, leave a comment, and all that happy crappy that helps the channel grow. He's not dry all the way, obviously, but he will be. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Check out the description. Down there, you'll find a link to the DungeonSwag website, a link to the Discord if you were interested in getting a free miniature. What else is there? There's other stuff there. I don't remember. Oh, a link to the entire monster manual that I made or painted. That'll be fun. And have a nice day.